So let me just jump over into student view here real fast, and we'll get started, okay? Okay, so this week, one of the things that we're going to be focusing one of the things that we're going to be focusing this week is kind of returning to our modeling tool set. For the last week or so, we've been spending a lot of energy, even today in class, really understanding and kind of getting strong in the creation of materials and textures. Now, if there's one part that requires a tremendous amount of muscle memory, believe it or not, it's materials and textures, okay? There's a sequence there that we have to go through often in order for us to achieve what it is that we're here to produce. So this week, we're going to kind of put our construction worker hat back on, our modeling hat. As I've mentioned a couple times before, some weeks we're construction workers or sculptors. Other weeks we're going to be painters or photographers. This week, we're really going to be a sculptor. Our mission this week is to make a model, of an army jeep. Bum, bum, bum. All right, time to kick it up a notch, okay? Yeah, we've been hanging out in the intro world for a while. Now it's time to really jump in and start making something that's got some detail, that's got some really specific information and forms that we need to construct that we can't achieve exclusively with simple shapes. So think of it like this. This is the basic train on steroids, right? We're taking one step further in our modeling tool set, okay? So I want you to take some inspiration from the examples down below, okay? This is a really great place to end up, even the banner image, okay? So we're still going to be putting a lot of detail in the actual model itself, but we're not just going like crazy blitz on all the detail, although you could. I'm never going to pull you away from adding detail and trying to make it go as far as you can go, okay? But use these images here as a barometer. Now, one thing that we have to pay really close attention to when we're going through this process is that we almost kind of need to be like a little subject, a mini subject matter expert, right? That's important for us. So I've given you guys a really great collection right there, a really awesome collection of images that will help you be a good super ninja at what it is that we're trying to accomplish here. Let me show you specifically what I'm talking about. Now, I've already downloaded those reference images to my local computer here. So if we take a look-see, here they all are. Okay, here's our Jeep reference images. Okay, I apologize. Trying to make sure that the live stream is in fact working today. Yes, it is. Okay, great. Sorry. All right. So I've given you a whole bunch of things. It's not just one image this week. It's many images. So what are we to do with all these images? Well, let's take a look at what I've provided you, and we can use these as a good starting point. As always, our goal in most things is to start with a really great schematic blueprint. Okay? This is an excellent place to begin. What do these schematic blueprints provide us? Go back in time to our basic train and our coffee cup. What do they give us? Yeah, guidelines. In every sense, these are glorified tracing guides. The fastest way to get to our result is to use a foundation of blueprint images, okay? So I provided you with a couple. The challenge this week, or one of the challenges this week, is using 3 backdrop items, right? In the basic train and the coffee cup, how many did I give you? 1. Right now we have 3, so the challenge is increasing. We want to use a few backdrop images of the object that we're trying to create so that we can understand pretty directly and quickly the proportions of everything that we're trying to model. This is a challenge that all of you guys ran into when it came to the basic train, right? Because I only gave you that backdrop item from the side, right? That picture, remember that? And a lot of the questions you guys had was, well, how big is it supposed to be? What's the width? And it was your responsibility and job to kind of figure out those proportions, right? Now we're using other backdrop items to help us figure out that missing proportion. Now, generally speaking, when you're working with multiple backdrop items as we are this week, we want to make sure that we're capturing information from 2 out of 3 or 2 or 3 different angles. So I've given you, of course, the backdrop item from the side. Here's the top, which is looking pretty good, and the front itself. So we're going to be putting all 3 of these together in Modo and creating a simple little network, okay? And the sequence that we go through is really, really important. Okay, we'll talk about that here in a minute. In addition, all the stuff that we're talking about today is already in Canvas inside of small little container videos. So definitely look at the learning resources in addition to the live stream to kind of strengthen your understanding of the concepts that we're going over in class today. Okay, especially the backdrop item 1. That's probably the most important part. Okay. Now, in addition to the backdrop items that I've given you guys, the blueprints, I'm also giving you guys some really great pictures. Now, what do these pictures kind of produce for us? Final product? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what else do these give us as far as artistic and kind of sculptural information? What do they give us? Materials, absolutely. Now we get a really good understanding of how the light is going to be interacting with these surfaces. We can pretty almost instantaneously understand, is it metal, is it rubber, what's wood, what's shiny, what's not shiny. Photographs, always, always, always fill in the blanks, okay? When it comes to modeling, we have to model with as many reference images as we can. Sometimes, details that we'll see in the blueprints, the schematics, are confusing, right? Let me show you a great example of this. Let's go back to the left side of my Jeep, okay? Sometimes we don't even know what we're looking at, okay? The line drawings do a great job of establishing relationships, but sometimes they don't give us context, okay? Those questions can be filled in rather quickly with perspective photographs of the object that we're trying to create, okay? So we have to have kind of both. I wish I could show you my laptop stuff. Unfortunately, I'm live streaming from my laptop today, okay? I'm working on a couple personal projects. I have, for whatever reason, I'm in like World War II mode right now. Like all the personal projects that I'm working on come from World War II. And a while ago, I created a really great model of a B-17, and I'm kind of wrapping up and finishing it. Like many things in my personal life, I've started them, but I haven't actually finished it. So I'm finishing my B-17, and most importantly, the scene that accompanies my B-17. And man, you should look at my reference folder. I think I must have like 300 photographs of a B-17 airplane in there, because I need to understand the literal moving parts and pieces, right? If you don't know what it looks like, how in the world are you expected to make a 3D model of it, right? Seriously. Seriously. How can you make a 3D model of something if you fundamentally don't know what it looks like, okay? Yeah, everyone thinks they know what an airplane looks like until I ask them to make a 3D model of it. Then often what we create is very, very far from the reality of the object, okay? Anyways, all right, let's jump over to Modo and start looking at how we can use all of these backdrop items in the application to continue building our model. Let's just start building our model, okay? Let's jump into Modo, okay? All right, so we're going to be importing some backdrop images. Now, before I get started, I think it's important to understand the purpose of what it is that we're doing, okay? We're going to be creating a network of images that are all going to work together to help us very quickly flush out some basic shapes. Because I want to be able to draw like the wheel from the side and understand its spatial relationship when I'm looking at my Jeep from the front, okay? So we're going to be using all three of these images simultaneously to model and place the details within inside the object itself. This is kind of like this next stage. It kind of, in every sense, is like painting a room. Have you guys ever painted a room? Okay. The most important part of any paint job is what? The prep work. Okay. Like masking out all the windows and stuff, making sure you got drop cloths and all your paint and stuff ready to go, preparing, like cleaning the walls. People don't clean their walls, and you need to when you paint, right? It's amazing how much better of a paint job you'll get if you just wipe down your walls and get all the dust and dirt off. That's prep work, right? That's not no one wants to do the prep work, because what do they want to do when you grab a can of paint? Start painting, right? Everyone wants to just jump in and start painting. Same thing goes for us in the 3D world. What's the first thing that you guys want to do? Start throwing down some polygons, right? And start building the thing, but just hang tight. The prep work is going to give us that foundation that will allow us to model more efficiently in the future, okay? So let's look at how we can use all of our backdrop images this week to get what we're after. Of course, naturally, we're going to begin by creating a whole series of backdrop images. This is identical to the process that we've used before, okay, with the basic train and the coffee cup. So you've already done this a number of times. I want to be a good steward of my scene and just kind of name things as I go. So this is going to be a reference image. This is going to be the front, okay? And then let's load in the actual backdrop image in the backdrop image category of options. Excuse me. Load image. I just have them saved to my desktop, so give me just a brief moment. Oh, actually, I apologize. I'm going to drag them to my desktop. Just copy them over there. There we go. Now when I jump back into Modo, do the exact same thing. I'll be good to go. All right. Hit the A key to focus on my backdrop item, and there we go. Now it's important that we're disciplined in this process, okay? Yes, sir?
Where is, I can't, I'm trying to figure out where to put that reference.
So you got to create a backdrop item first. In that Add Item pull-down menu, click on the white arrow. The white arrow next to where it says Add Item. There we go, backdrop item. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is we're going to require some discipline. Okay, if you follow the sequence and you honor the sequence, it'll work. Okay, if you deviate from the sequence and go Ronin on me, you're on your own. Okay, then you're going to have to start troubleshooting. So here's the sequence that we need to go through. We import the images, right? That's like the first phase, okay? The second phase is aligning and orienting the images to our scene, so to our three-dimensional universe, okay? And then the third phase in this process is aligning and orienting the images to each other, to the other images inside the scene. Because remember, we're making a little team here of reference images that are going to work together to help us very quickly craft what it is that we're here to craft, okay? In our case, a little army jeep. All right, so I've already finished the first phase, of my front backdrop image. Let's continue on and start into the second phase, which, as we just discussed, is an alignment of the image to the scene, to the grid. Now, if you look carefully here, let me just click on my backdrop item properties. This happens often when working with backdrop items. Sometimes you'll click on it, and the category of options that gets loaded in is this image still. The backdrop categories of properties is really what we're after. That's got all the important stuff in it, okay? Okay, so luckily for us, our front image is already good to go as far as the projection type is set, right? Because I want to be able to see my front image in the front view of my scene, right? So there's no change necessary here inside the projection type, okay? However, let's go into the front view and get a really solid look and understanding of where this image is placed in reference to our three-dimensional scene, the grid, if you will, okay? And this is where we have to be a little bit disciplined in this and make some decisions, make some big decisions, okay? So, luckily for us, I've provided you guys with an image that defines pretty easily the center point of our little Jeep, right? You're welcome. I've given you that, guys, a big red line going right down the center of the Jeep, okay? But it'd be really great if I could place the center of that line in the center of the x-axis, right? That'd be cool. How could I do that? What one of these channels can we adjust to allow us to see through the image to the grid behind it? Transparency, okay? Because we want to be able to accurately place this image in reference to the grid. Phase 2, right? Align the images to our grid or to the scene. Now, out of habit, I just always put my transparency value right around 70%. And now we can very easily see over here in the grid, yeah, that red line and the grid lines behind it. That's what we're after. Now, I know it's a little bit difficult to see on the projector, so bear with me. What do I need to do to this image to place it in reference correctly, in the correct reference to the grid? Move it which way? That way, absolutely. It's going this way. Here's the indicator line that represents the center of the x-axis. I want to put the center of the Jeep in the center of the x-axis, okay? Now, luckily for us, just selecting the item and then hitting the Move tool will generate, oops, I'm all zoomed in, excuse me. Let me zoom out. So I'm just getting it close. For a lack of a better term, I am eyeballing it, and now I'm getting way too crazy. Okay, there we go. That's good enough. All right. Aha, awesome. So we aligned the Jeep left and right along the x-axis, but where and how should we align it along the y-axis, up and down? What would make sense, you think?
The wheels should touch the ground plane.
I like it. The bottom of the wheel should touch the ground, okay? Oftentimes, it's of good practice, if you will, to place and model our objects where they would naturally appear if they were sitting here in the middle of our classroom, right? Okay? Think of their floor, kind of the middle of the y-axis. Of course, naturally, the wheels of the Jeep will be sitting on our floor. So let's model it in that logical place initially. Saves us some extra steps, and it will help our spatial reasoning skills kind of understand how all these things work together. So here's what I'm going to do. With my backdrop item selected, I'm just going to move it up until the part of the picture that represents the bottom of the wheel, somewhere right around in there. That's pretty good. It's just chilling right there at the center of the y-axis. Yes, sir?
How would I adjust the floor to move it around?
Hit the move tool, right? Okay, so done. Excellent, right? Before we advance into phase 3, we have to load in all the other images. And this is where the discipline comes in, right? Load, adjust, load, adjust, load, adjust. So we're going to go through the exact same process again on the side and on the top. Let's do it one by one here. Zip over into my perspective view and start getting all these elements inserted into my three-dimensional scene. So add item, backdrop item. Of course, we'll give it a good name. Ref, this will be the side. And in the backdrop item properties, we'll load in a new backdrop item by choosing add clip, load image, and then I just travel over to my desktop, grab the side one. There it is. Aha, okay. However, now on the side image, we have some adjustments that we need to make, okay? Visually, what do I need to do here? Turn it, I mean rotate it, right? Visually in the picture, what's the front of the Jeep? I like it, yeah. Kevin's like this side, landing an airplane, which I like, okay? Yeah, no, here's the bumper. This is the front of the Jeep. Where does the front of the Jeep need to be facing in our three-dimensional scene? X represents left and right. The z-axis, yeah. And then which side of the z-axis? The negative or positive? Positive, right? Right now, how do I know which way the Jeep is currently facing? Our compass. Our compass is going to define pretty quickly the orientation of all things inside of our three-dimensional scene. And I can see that the front of my picture is facing towards the negative area of our x-axis, okay? So I need to rotate this. Hold on a second, though. Don't go hitting the rotate command and rotating this bad boy, because the projection type option right here is going to give us the result that we're after without having to rotate it, okay? Now I'm going to change my projection type to, let's see, right, because I'm looking at the right side of the Jeep, and you can see automatically that the computer rotates it for us, okay? The developers down at the Foundry have done a really great job of providing us with a really fluid system that allows us to easily make changes and additions to our object, okay? Let's look at our scene from the right and continue to do some analysis, because we're getting there. But are we there yet? Are we there yet? No. What's next? Because which way is our Jeep supposed to be facing? Cameron, you got it right. The opposite direction. Well, how do you know that? Yeah. But specifically, what tells you? The compass, okay? Because the compass is always going to give us our bearings. The compass never lies, as they say. Yes, sir. Let's see what you got on your screen. Yeah, I just changed my view to look at it from the right instead of from perspective. So what do I need to do here? Do I need to rotate my image? No, just flip it. Over in your backdrop item properties, that flip command is going to give you what you're after. So let me grab my side reference image here, and I'm just going to flippy flip. Bloop. All right, there we go. While we're here and thinking about it, let's increase the transparency as well so we can start orienting and placing this image to the grid. Now, from the right view of our scene, we don't get to place it left and right along the x-axis, right? And I don't know where it needs to live along the z-axis yet, okay? But where should I place this image along the y-axis, up and down? What do we do in the front? The wheels, what about the wheels? And you're right. They touch the ground. So if they touch the ground in the front, on the side view, we should do the same thing. Okay? So I'm going to raise up my wheels here. I'll raise up my image until the wheels are touching the middle of the y-axis. Right about, and there. That's pretty good. All right, rock and roll. One more to go. Uno más. Okay? Let's jump over into perspective. Load in that third backdrop item, and we're going to be darn near close to entering into phase 3, which is where it gets really fun. This is, believe it or not, the easy part. Okay, let's load in our backdrop image, add clip, load image, travel to where it's saved on your computer, which for me is on my desktop, and we'll load it in. Okay, now before we go any further, let's adjust a projection type. Now it's your turn. I gave you the projection type for the previous one. What's the projection type for the top image need to be? Top. Yeah, you got it. Because we only want to see this image on the top. 2 seconds. Let me finish my thought. All right. And there it is. Yes, sir.
Is like this? Or the second one?
Yeah, that's good. Okay. I think it's like that. Yes, sir.
I lost them.
Oh. Okay. Did you try hitting the A key? There we go.
And for a third one?
Yeah, that's what we're on the third one, right? Let's do the third one, the top one. Okay. Okay. So if we look at our scene from the top, there we go. We have some problems here. What are the problems with this guy? Yeah, it's horizontal, right? Which direction is the front of the Jeep facing in the top picture? Which direction is it facing? X, and which side of the X? Let's get more specific. It's facing negative X, right? These are always going to point towards the positive side of that axis, right? So the Jeep is facing to the left. I'm intentionally putting left in finger quotes because left is kind of arbitrary, right? Is it my left or is it the Jeep's left? I don't know. That's why we get specific with the compass, okay? It's facing negative X. Which way do I want it facing? Yeah. Okay, let's answer the question first. Which way is it supposed to be facing? Z. Yes, absolutely. The front of the Jeep is supposed to be facing the front of the scene, which we know is which area? Oh, I should quiz you guys. Positive Z, right? So visually, which way does the Jeep need to be facing? Down, right? Because here's the Z axis that's pointing down. Now, if I was to flip this image, what would I get? Yeah, it would give us the wrong answer still, right? Because then the front of the Jeep would be flipped facing the positive X, which isn't what we want, right? So this is a really great chance and time to rotate the image itself, okay? When the flip command doesn't give us what we're after, then we rotate it. And I'm going to rotate it simply 90 degrees in the transform section of my backdrop item, 90 degrees along the y-axis. Yes, sir, question?
To get on the bottom, what did you do? Just click rotate and did right here?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question again?
What did you do to get it on the bottom? This right here?
So the first thing we got to do is you got to change the projection type from front to top. There you go. Yep. And then rotate it 90 degrees along the y-axis.
The position? No, I have to rotate.
Yep. Rotate. And while I'm here, I'm going to change my transparency value to 70%. In addition, if we look closely here, what do I need to do as far as placing this image correctly into the grid itself? Yeah, move to the right, get that red line perfectly centered along the x-axis. We're ready to go.
To the top or bottom? Is it top or bottom? Bottom, right?
What did you set?
I said the top.
Then look at it from the top. All right. Okie dokie day. Okay, so if we look at our scene here, this is what we got. Okay, things are starting to look pretty good. However, before we go forward, I think now's a really good time to start testing the alignment of all of these images. So now we're entering into phase 3. We've imported, we've aligned to our three-dimensional scene. Now we have to align them to each other. Okay? And this is where it gets kind of, not complex, but there's a sequence, again, that we have to follow. Now, what we're looking for here are features inside the picture, okay, that we can easily see in multiple pictures, okay? What I like to do is start with the master image, or I kind of declare one of my 3 pictures the master image, okay? That master image is we're gonna lock it down, okay? We're not gonna touch it. And we're gonna align everything to the master, okay? If we're changing and moving and scaling all 3 of them simultaneously, we're gonna get in this endless, infinite edit loop, okay? There has to be one image that's locked down, that is the common denominator, if you will, between the other 2, okay? For me personally, just for my own kind of production process here, the front image is often that master image. It's usually 9 times out of 10 the image that we can very easily attain out there in the real world. Guaranteed, for most objects that you're building from reference, you're going to find which 2 perspectives in reference. Which 2 perspectives do you think you're always going to find?
Side, front.
You got it, the front and the side, for sure. Why not the top? Tops are kind of hard to find. Why? It's so easy, it's hard. Yeah, no, yeah, that's it, right. It's kind of difficult to get a gigantic ladder out and take a picture of something from the top. That's kind of hard, right? Or underneath it, you're very rarely going to find a picture of something from the bottom, like a blueprint like this from the bottom. Okay, so the front is one that you almost always find, which is it's a good place to begin. So I'm going to do a quick double check. Make sure that it's placed to the grid the way I want it to. And visually, I'm going to say, yep, thumbs up, looking pretty good. And now mentally, I'm locking it down. I'm not going to touch this one again. However, I need to find a feature in the front image that I can easily see from the side image. Okay? Now, looking at the picture now, what feature in this picture? So a detail in the picture can we see in both the front picture and the side picture? Yeah, wheels are a good one, right? Because we can very easily see the bottom of the wheels in the front and the top of the wheels in both the front and the side. Check it out. I can see the bottom of the wheels here and the top of the wheels. If I jump over to the right, yeah, there it is. Here's the bottom right there. And of course, here's the top up here. Okay, so these are 2 really good features that we can use to align and test all this stuff too. Okay, we have to prove to ourselves that these 2 images are the appropriate scale in relationship to each other. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Once again, I'm going to return to my front view, and I'm going to throw down some geometry in an empty mesh item. Just going to use a couple cubes. That's all, nothing too fancy. And what I'm going to say here on the cubes is that the location of this bottom edge represents the top of the wheel, okay? I'm visually giving myself a landmark, okay? Same with the bottom. I'm going to copy, paste, move my duplicate down. Oops, didn't copy it. Edit, copy, paste. There we go. I probably did it too fast. Same with the bottom. There we go, something like that. Kind of sandwiching my wheel in between those 2 polygons, giving myself a marker, a visual marker inside of my 3-dimensional scene that I can easily see. So now, when I go over to my right view, let's just extrude them out real fast. Of course, naturally, you can find the extrude command inside of your basic tool category. Let's extrude them along the z-axis. Now, what I'm looking at here is to see if the wheel in the side picture is contained inside of those visual landmarks that I just created. And what's the answer to that question? Yeah, I think it's darn near close. Okay? This is good. That means that the size of the features in the front picture are the exact same size as the features in the side picture. Okay? I like that. Okay. One more to go. Yeah.
I don't know where the references at.
There they are. They're right there.
I know, it's just I didn't put them in the X or Y positions.
I haven't either. Yeah, I was just doing visually. There's not any numbers to it. You just visually center them to the axes. Okay. All right, let's go back to the front, because remember, the front's the master in all of this, right? The front's the key. So what features in the front picture can we easily see in the top picture? So front to top now. What can we see? What are the common elements between those two photographs? Features in the pictures themselves. Window? Yeah. That's pretty good. Like maybe the width of the window, that's a good place. What else? Because the window is kind of a, I wouldn't pick the window because the window's at an angle, right? That may not be the best measuring stick. What isn't at an angle? What's really easy to see? Bumper's a good one, right? Because we can easily see the sides of the bumper here and here. Let's go over the top view, see if we can see those features pretty clearly. Yep. Well, again, this is maybe not the best one because that's at an angle. We may be getting a false read in that front one. Okay. How about the sides of the wheels or the sides of the mud flaps? Check it out. That's a pretty straight line. We look at it from the front. Yeah, we can see it right there. Yeah, that's going to do it. So let's do that. I want to work with those. So I'm going to grab my reference cubes and just rotate them 90 degrees and place them individually where I want them to go, somewhere right around in there. So that inside edge represents the outside of the mud flap. Same with this one over here. See, we got somewhere right around in there. Yep. Good. So once again, I've defined the outsides of my Jeep with these reference planes. And if I look at the top now, big problems, right? What are my problems here? Yeah, you got it. If you look very carefully here, okay, check it out. If this inside edge of my left polygon represents the outside of the Jeep, okay, same with its friend on the right, what do I need to do to the backdrop image? I need to make it smaller, right? I need to scale it down so that the lines in the picture that represent the exact same feature as we saw on the front are where they need to be inside the scene. Okay, let's do it real fast. It doesn't take much energy. Of course, I'll return to item mode and select my backdrop item. And I'll start scaling this guy down. Yeah, we'll have to do a scale and a move somewhere right around in there. Yeah, and I'm really happy with this. Okay. Look at the front. Yep, looking good. I like it. That defines the outside of the mud flaps. Those exact same polygons now in the top also define the outsides of the mud flap. Okay. This is good alignment. I'm pretty pleased with the direction we're going in. Let's really test it though, okay? You don't know for sure until you test, okay? Keep in mind, this is the foundation for our entire project, which is why we're spending some time on it. We want to make it look perfect. So let's be 100% sure that it's working before we start throwing down some polygons, okay? Now, I think for me, the low-hanging fruit could be the wheels, right? So here's the idea. I want to delete that reference geometry. Return to looking at my scene from the right. Let's examine our wheel a little bit here. Now, we have an interesting problem with the wheel and other things all across the board in our image. Can anyone spot pretty quickly the problem that we're facing with the wheel and how the author of this image has decided to draw a couple things? Look carefully at the image if you're following along. Bingo. And what's off-centered? Yeah, those little dotted lines, right? Look very carefully here. The dotted lines are not correctly placed, right? Are they in the middle of the circle that the author drew? This is human error, right? If you're working with backdrop images that are created, I'd say, before 1990, okay, you're working with images that were drawn by hand. Let that sink in for a second. If you're working with imagery that was created before 1990, you're working with imagery that's drawn by hand, okay? And so the author of this Jeep image, okay, he or she just messed up. They didn't put the dotted lines where we need them to be, right? Are they in the center of the axle of the wheel? No, not even. We're close. Look, this middle line is way off to the right, and the top one is also is not in the center, right? They just fundamentally goofed, okay? We have to be aware that there's the chance and sometimes the most obvious human error infused in every single pencil stroke in our blueprints, okay? Welcome to 3D. Our job is to fill in the gaps, okay? The blueprints are going to get us darn near close. The blueprints are almost always going to get us to maybe the 10-yard line, okay? And it's our jobs as artists to go the rest of the way, to get into the end zone. So if things are off ever so slightly, don't panic. Keep going, okay? The blueprints are wrong, okay? All the blueprints are wrong. Every piece of concept art that you ever work with is going to be wrong. If the image wasn't created from a CAD drawing, okay, or a CAD model, it is wrong, okay? But that's okay, because we're making art, right? It can be off. It can be a little, it can be close, okay? We're just trying to approximate. It's our job to fill in the gaps, okay? So don't use these lines as an absolute guide, because if you do, you're going to go crazy, okay? Trust me, you're going to go crazy, okay? So don't use it as an absolute guide. Get it close, okay? Then use your own creative imagination to fill in the gaps, all right? So I'm going to fill in the gaps just with a simple cylinder tool here. Click, hold down the control key, draw out a perfect circle, and look at that, I got it right almost the first time. How about that? It's almost like I know what I'm doing. I'm going to extrude this shape out just a little bit. There we go. We can start to see it appear inside of our three-dimensional view. And now look at my scene from the front and position that wheel where I believe it needs to go. Somewhere right around there. I'll even make it a little bit wider with the scale tool to get me real close. Okay? So from the side, the wheel looks perfect. It's in the correct placement to the image in the side view, because we spent a lot of time orienting and placing and measuring, if you will, the other images. Now I can look at the front, and it's also in the exact same spot. Let's look at our scene from the top and really examine how good of a job we've done, and we're pretty close, okay? Now really what we're after here and what we need to change is the placement of my Jeep along the Z-axis. We never did that. There we go, somewhere right around there. And this is a really great example of where you just kind of have to accept that there's going to be some inaccuracies in the drawings themselves, okay? Is the wheel perfect from the top? No, it's not perfect from the top. Are we going to live with it? Yeah, we're going to live with it, okay? You're never going to make 100% of the imagery correct. I'd say in my kind of professional experience, if I can get 2 out of the 3 backdrop items working harmoniously together, that's a good day. Okay? If I can't get any of them to align to one another, we've got some problems. Okay? Clearly, the individual that drew this on the top view just drew the tire a little thicker. Okay? A little bit wider than it actually is from the front. All right. So I'm happy with that. That's in my opinion, that's a move on type moment. Now we're starting to get some geometry in here, and let me illustrate this even further by just doing a simple copy and paste of my cylinder. I'm going to put that cylinder again way over here to represent the back wheel. There we go. That's good. Now that I got some geometry cruising inside of my scene, the origin of my three-dimensional scene is just, man, it's just getting really, really packed with a whole bunch of stuff. Is it easy or difficult to see my model at the origin of the scene? Yeah, it's pretty darn difficult. Because we got all the backdrop items, their transparency, and the model. I want to make it easy for my 3 a.m. brain to consume this, right? Because you know, when you're tired, you need to make it easy for yourself, like protect your future self, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. Actually, we have two options, okay? The first one is kind of the old school method. So if you're working in other apps, this is more likely the way that you're going to have to work with it, okay? I want to select my front image, and again, return to view my scene from the front, okay? Now, our compass here is going to be a big helper for us to understand how we can continue to move and maybe push these backdrop items away from the origin without messing up all that crazy alignment that we just went through, right? Because we just spent a tremendous amount of time trying to get these images working together. The last thing I want to do is mess that up, okay? The compass is going to tell me which axis I can move this image along and not screw up its relative relational alignment to the other images, right? And here's my trick. It's the axis that is absent for the compass in this view. So we're looking at my scene from the front. I got my front backdrop item selected. What view or what axis is not represented in our compass right now? The Z. So that's the one we can move this image along without having to worry and wonder if we're messing things up. Check it out. We're turned back to the perspective view of my scene, and I'm just going to move this along the Z-axis. I'm going to push it way into the background. Okay, let's do the same thing for the side. I'll cruise over to the right view of my scene, and here we go. Again, which axis is absent from my compass? X. So that's the axis that I get to move this image along to get what I'm after. So I'm just going to move this way out over there. And last but not least, the top, through a process of elimination, what axis can we move the top one along? The y-axis, the up and down. So this is pretty cool, because now we've cleared out the origin. We still have my backdrop images in tow. They're still aligned perfectly. If you look at the front, the tire's in the exact same spot it was a second ago. If you look at it from the right, the tire's in the exact same spot, so we haven't messed anything up. We've just pushed them and cleared out the origin from the backdrop images, okay? And because all I want to see visually at the origin of the scene to help me consume and really understand what it is that I'm working on is the model. So that's the old school method of working with things, with these backdrop items, okay? Now the developers down at the Foundry have done us a solid, and they've given us a really great command, a really great option in each of the backdrop items. Let me kind of mirror it for you real fast. So here I have my right or side backdrop item selected, and check it out. In the backdrop properties, show in perspective, okay? If I disable this, now I'm only going to see that backdrop item inside the right view of my scene. There it is, okay? But it's not going to show up in the perspective view. Same thing goes in the front. I don't want to see it in perspective. All I want to see it is when I jump over into the front view of my scene. It's a really great way of filtering the visibility of all of our backdrop items in the perspective view of your scene. So I'm kind of getting in the habit of turning that option off because I don't want to see the backdrop items in the perspective view. Neither do you, okay? You only want to see these backdrop items in the orthographic views of your scene. That way, you get the accuracy that you need to place the geometry and the other components of your mesh specifically where it needs to be. Okay? Pretty neato, huh? Pretty neato. All right. So I think I'm going to continue testing the alignment of my little Jeep here by roughly by roughing it out a little bit. Okay? By blocking it out with a basic simple shape. What basic simple shape is our little Jeep? Yeah, it's a square, right? We got 4 cylinders for wheels, maybe a 5th cylinder for the spare tire in the back. The body of the Jeep is a gigantic rectangle. What shape is the windshield? Rectangle. What about the mud flaps? It's like 3 rectangles all kind of positioned and rotated into differently. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of rectangles in here. Let's block it out real fast and start looking at what we get. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go over to my right view just so I can see the entire Jeep in here pretty clearly. And with a rectangle tool, just going to block it out. There's the rough size of the Jeep right there. Okay? Give it some dimension. Okay? And this is why we have all these backdrop images. Because now I can go in and start placing these side polygons where they need to be respectively. Aha! There she blows. Awesome. Okay? Done. Turn it in, render. No, I'm joking. We still have a long ways to go. We got 1,000 steps in front of us to complete this thing. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been spending a lot of time focusing on the construction of simple shapes. We've explored the awesomeness of the bevel tool, which allows us to take a simple shape and continue to edit and expand it. I want to start introducing the slicing tools today, because a lot of the detail that we need to cut in on the mesh and to create on the actual geometry is going to come from our slicing engine. Now, the whole big picture idea behind the slicing tools inside of Modo, or any app for that matter, is that we take existing geometry and we add edges, only edges, to the interior of that shape. Okay? Check it out. There's a whole bunch of them. You can find your slicing tools inside of the Mesh Edit category of tools right here in your basic toolbar, or your toolbar, excuse me. And there they are, okay? Awesome. If you pay real close attention to the color of the icons, the slicing ones are the pink icons, okay? There are a whole bunch of really great slicing tools. However, I want you to look very carefully at the tools in most of the toolbars, okay? Which ones have keyboard shortcuts next to them? Now, you don't have to actually read it out, but think about this kind of philosophically for a second. The developers down at the Foundry have assigned keyboard shortcuts to specific tools. Not every tool gets a keyboard shortcut. So what do you think those tools are, the ones that have keyboard shortcuts? Those are the important ones, okay? Those are the tools that we're going to come back to over and over and over again. Those are the rock stars, okay? The ones that have dedicated keyboard shortcuts are the really important ones. For us specifically, in the context of what we're going to be exploring today, the slice command, the traditional slice, is awesome. You guys are going to love slice. Slice is great. I wish every app had a slice command because it's pretty fantastic. Here's the best way that I can describe the function, the output of the slice tool. It's like a freaking laser, man, okay? And it's going to slice anything in its path. Let me show you how it works. Okay, it's pretty neat. The slice tool behaves a little bit differently because, of course, naturally, we're going to turn the tool on, but we don't actually, start our little laser beam until we left click and drag. Now, what's difficult for a lot of people is understanding the spatial relationships of that big purple plane. Do you see it? That big purple plane in here, that's the laser beam. Whatever's touching the big purple plane is going to get sliced, okay? Let me drop the tool for a second. You can see pretty quickly exactly the product of this tool. Check it out. Drop the tool, spacebar. Ha-ha! Boom. There it is. It literally is a laser beam, okay? And it slices anything in its path. Here, let me help you guys out for a second. I'm going to turn the visibility of my verts on. Yeah, so it adds an edge, okay? It's always going to. That's what all slicing tools do, is that they create edges and vertices on the interior of polygons, okay? Now, this is a dangerous tool for a lot of folks because they forget that it's a laser beam that's going to slice everything, literally everything in its path, okay? Now, I was maybe hoping that I could slice this big rectangle for my Jeep, but check it out. It also sliced my wheel. Oops. Okay? So, here's what we need to remember when it comes to the slice command. We want to filter and influence. I'm hitting the undo key, by the way. We want to filter and influence what the slicing tool is going to affect with the selection. Remember our motto mantra? Okay? Whatever is selected will be edited. If nothing is selected, everything is going to be edited. This idea comes home to roost with the slicing tools inside of Modo. Okay? So if I wanted to only and exclusively slice the rectangle for my Jeep, what should I do first? Yeah, select it, right? Select the physical polygons, which is going to tell the machine to only work on those polygons. So now I want to run the slice tool again, identically to the way I did before. Just left click and drag. Haha. Can you guys see that my selection is really kind of coming home to roost here? My little infinite slice plane is going through my tire, but is it slicing my tire? Nope. Okay? It's only slicing the selected polygons. Okay? So that's Pat's power user trick of the day. When using the slice tool, select something first. It hedges your bets, basically. It ensures they don't accidentally slice something that you don't want sliced.
Could it also click one side if you just click the side?
You got it. If I just wanted to do one side, whatever is selected is going to be edited. So if I just have one polygon selected, that's the only one that I'm going to slice. Yep. Yep. All right. Here's another cool thing about the slice tool, because often I want to use the slice tool to very quickly start adding some edges inside of my mesh. Okay? When working with the slice tool in the perspective view, it's kind of conceptual, this little plane, right? It's kind of difficult to manage, difficult to work. I would recommend not using the slice tool in perspective. Okay? You're going to find your results are going to get inaccurate pretty quickly, because the orientation of your view is going to determine basically your understanding of the placement of that slice plane. So here's what I would recommend. I'm going to just delete that edge loop. Go to an orthographic view. And I'm going to turn off the backdrop image just so you guys can see it. And then once again, hold down the slice tool. Okay, or activate the slice tool, then left click and drag. I know it's kind of hard to see in the projector, but we have a little purple line there. And now we can very, very carefully and very accurately understand the angle of my slice plane, okay, and how it's affecting my mesh, okay? Now, in these orthographic views, if you mess up, for example, check this out. If you click on the middle of that purple line, you can move it around still. That's why I like this. I can move it around. Oops, I'm all zoomed in, so it's going crazy. But I can move it around, and I can continue to edit my slice, okay? What if you wanted a perfectly vertical or a perfectly horizontal slice? How could we get that? Has anyone stumbled upon it and figured it out? There's an easier way of that. Yes, okay? Check it out. Run the slice tool. Now before you left click and drag, hold down the control key. Now I'm going to drag down and see how it's snapping and constraining. I'm actually dragging my mouse left and right now, not up and down. And it's constraining it to a perfectly vertical line. Okay? So I can do it again. Hold down the control key. Perfectly straight line. Do the same thing. Fire a slice. Hold down the control key. Left click and drag. Perfectly horizontal line. Okay? It's a great trick. It'll make slicing go really fast. In addition, if I wanted to repeat a slice, right? We could always return to our shift-click paradigm or system they went to before, right? I can hold down the shift key, oops, I guess actually, yeah, you can do that. Hold down the Shift key. Now I'm holding down Shift and Control, and you can see how I can just slice until my heart's content. Okay? That's cool. All right. The slice tool is a favorite of mine. I like the slice tool, but it's important to understand that it's a laser, and it will cut something, even especially if it's not selected, or if it is selected. Excuse me. Okay, so it's an infinite laser beam. It's a good one. Okay. There's some other things in the slice command that make it really powerful. I'll let you guys explore those on your own. But I wanted to spend some other time today talking about maybe how we can start working with our Jeep, okay? Because I can see pretty easily here. There's my base of the Jeep, and I need to start taking this shape and slicing it and editing it to add more interior detail to start defining, portions of the Jeep, okay? How do I do that, right? Well, the slice tool is one, okay? I want to focus my energy here for a second just on this back wheel well. How am I going to add geometry to create that arc, right? Good place to begin, right? Let's figure it out. Whenever I'm trying to define an arc or any sort of intense change in form, okay, I define that intense change in form with an edge, okay? So once again, I'm going to grab my slice tool, hold down the Control key, and left click and drag. Before I drop the tool, I'll click in the middle of the line to really accurately position it where I want it to be, somewhere right around there. There we go. If you look at the new edge that I threw down there, aha, now it's beginning to define the start of the arc right in there. And I know it's hard to see. It will be easier to see on your machines. I want to do the exact same thing on the back. Slice tool, hold down the Control key, left click and drag, and then I'll position it where I want it to go, somewhere right around in there. Here's what I'm going to hide my wheel real fast. Hit the H key. And that's what I have. Okay? What I've created here, of course, new edges, but specifically I've created some edge loops. Pop quiz hot shots. What is an edge loop? How do you define a loop? I heard someone say it, and you're right. It goes all the way around, okay? It's a row. It's a row of edges. It goes all the way around the mesh, and then it connects back onto itself, okay? Loops come in two different flavors, edge loops and poly loops, okay? They both follow the same kind of definition. Here's an edge, okay? It's now connected to its friend here on the front, which shares a vert to its friend down over here, which is connected to the edge on the back, and that back edge connects to the original edge on the top. That's an edge loop, okay? Here's another one over here. Loop, okay? If I was to change my selection set over to polygons, same kind of idea applies, right? There's a gigantic polygon. It's connected to its friend over here, bloop, which is then connected to that guy, and so on and so forth, okay? Those are edge loops and poly loops, okay? I want to take advantage of these loops, and I want to ask the computer to slice just a single loop, okay? Which is probably, or the loop slice tool is probably one of those tools that you're going to be using all the time, right? Because I want to create an even kind of distribution, if you will, of edges inside of my arc, okay? Because remember, I'm creating an arc now, okay? Now that's a pretty even arc. We're kind of, pretty even arc. Let's see if we can define the middle point of that arc. Now, I don't want to guess, okay? I want to get accurate here. I want to let the computer, our big fancy thinking machine, figure out the middle of that loop for me automatically, okay? Let me show you the edge loop tool, or the loop slice tool, excuse me. The loop slice tool is awesome because it allows us to take an existing loop and then slice inside of it, okay? And that's the idea that I want you to take away here with the loop slice tool. It's existing geometry, and we're going to slice inside of that entire row. In order for the loop slice tool to work correctly, we have to tell it which loop to slice. Because there's actually a whole bunch of loops on this model, even my simple little rectangle, right? I have the loop here that I've been working with, this guy. There's a loop, but check it out. Here's another loop over there. There's actually another loop here. There's even a loop going around this way. There's a whole bunch of loops, and there's even another one. I'm sorry, I forgot one. Here's another loop on the top. So we need to tell the computer which loop to slice within. So here's the part that a lot of folks miss on the first time. You have to select two polygons on the loop that you want the computer to slice on. Now I want to slice this back bit. So I'm going to select the first one. Here's the second one. Okay. And then over in our Mesh Edit collection of tools, here it is. Here's the rock star. It's got a keyboard shortcut, so you know it's important. Okay. Loop slice. Okay. Now when you activate loop slice, the computer automatically steps in and starts doing a lot of work for us. It continues to select the rest of the loop, and you can see by this big purple line in the center here what it's actually doing. Now if you're following along, you may be getting a different result here. And let me show you why you're getting a different result, because there's a lot of, actually there's not a lot, there's only two properties in here that you really need to focus on today. There's obviously a lot of options. Loop slice is the power tool, but there's two that I want you to focus on. Count, which is the number of new edge loops we're adding, and then mode, which is how those edge loops are being added. Right now, my count is at 1. And you can see that we're getting a single new edge loop inside the selected poly loop. Okay? My mode's to uniform. Let's change this a little bit. Let's change the mode from uniform in our tool properties to free. When the mode's on free, now I can left click and drag and place that loop wherever I want it to go. Okay? If I want it over here, I could do that. I can put it over there. I'm in the driver's seat. Now, before we go too much further, let's increase the count from 1 to 2. The mode's still on free, but now how do I figure out, I want to grab that back one and my cursor's on it and it won't move. Well, in order for us to select that back one, that's where this part of the interface steps in. See the little arrows? Those are loop selection indicators. Okay? So if I wanted to select that back one, just click on it. And now when I left click and drag, you can see I'm interactively placing that loop inside of this structure. Okay? So that's what the free mode allows us to do, is to interactively place these loops freely anywhere we want, inside the loop that we're slicing. Now one of the alternatives to this is the mode of symmetry. Now, we're on free. I'm going to come back to uniform here in a second, but check out symmetry. Symmetry is kind of cool. If I left click and drag, how are my loops being placed? Yeah, symmetrically within inside the loop, right? So I can place them on even opposite sides within the loop, which is pretty cool. That's what symmetry does. Now, the one that I want you guys to focus on today is the mode of uniform. Uniform is going to evenly distribute all the new edge loops inside of the selected poly loop. Okay? Check it out. I want to zoom out so you guys can see what it looks like. I'll fire off the mode of uniform. Bloop. And now the computer takes over. It's analyzing the width of the loop, and it's evenly slicing that loop for me, which is pretty cool. If your tool is still on, check it out. I'm going to go in and I'm going to increase the count a little bit. And it's going to update and distribute all of those loops evenly across the selected poly loop. Okay? This is pretty neat. Okay? I'm going to put mine, in the context of my little Jeep, I'm going to put mine back down to 1. Because I want a midpoint. I always zero in on trying to find a midpoint for my arcs pretty early on. I define the beginning, I define the end of my arc, but now I need to find the midpoint in the arc. The uniform mode and loop slice is going to give me that midpoint mathematically for me. Thank you. I love when my computer does the work for me. Okay? It's great. If you look back over here, haha, and it's pretty close to what the author of my backdrop image was going. If the author of my backdrop image had actually placed the dotted lines in the center of the axle, they probably would have gotten it right. Right? Look how close that midpoint is to the dotted line. That's pretty close. Okay, anyways. All right. So now what can we do? Well, let's continue adding some new loops in here. Now the distance of the right side of my arc is smaller than the left side of the arc. Okay? So I think what I'm going to do is that I'm going to slice each side differently. I'll put maybe 3 new edge loops on this side and 5 on the other side. Okay? I like odd numbers because odd numbers allow to kind of, again, it gives me a center point within inside that structure. Okay? Let's do it real fast. Now, I'm going to loop slice this one first. What do I need to do to direct the loop slice tool to select the desired loop?
Select 2 faces.
You got it. Select 2 faces. So here we go. Hold down the Shift key. The keyboard shortcut for the loop slice command is Alt-C or Option-C if you're following along on a PC. So Option-C. I'll change this to 5. There we go. Evenly distributed. I like it. I love that uniform. Oh, one other thing. If your mode is like in symmetry, okay? If you hit this uniform button, it'll uniformly distribute all. It's the same thing. Bloop. Okay. I'll put 3 over here. All right, and it's looking pretty good. All right. So what do we do with these now? We've created a basic shape. We've edited that basic shape, or we've added some additional detail to that basic shape, and now we need to edit that detail to start really fleshing out some basic important pieces here. Okay? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to select these edges like this. Okay? Now, I'm not going to select the 2 edges that represent the start, which is this one here, and the end of my arc, which is this one way over here on the right. I'm going to turn off my grid real fast, excuse me. Okay, there we go. Okay, and now from the right, this is where it gets fun. I'm going to start moving them up. And I'm going to start placing, I'm looking at this first one, this middle one, place it to reference right about in there. You can even use my middle mouse marquee selection to grab an edge, start placing it. And now I'm going to move those edges down to where the reference tells me they need to go. Uh-oh. Got a little bit of a problem, though. Look at the way that part of my Jeep is looking. That's not what I'm after. Right? Oops, sorry. So what should I do in there? Add an extra loop. You got it. Add, slice it again. Put some extra detail in there so we have a vert that will change the shape of the wheel well. So I'll loop slice it. I don't need a count of 3. I just want a count of 1, which yields me that new vert. Okay, or that new edge. I'm just going to move it up, something like that. If I really wanted to get crazy, I can do 1 more. That's a little nuts for me, but for today, that's what we'll do. Yeah, I'd want to focus a little bit more on getting those dots a little bit more evenly spaced, but for today, for what we're doing, that's a good start. Do the same thing over here. Now, I'm using the middle mouse button, okay? If you use the middle mouse button and drag out a selection box, you can select that edge, okay? Then move it down. Now these need to go up to match the bottom. Yeah, if I wanted to, I could add another piece down here, another edge. Move it up into position to really capture the shape a little bit more cleanly. There we go. I'm liking that. That's a good start. That's a good start. If you look at what I've created here, I've started with a simple shape. Now I'm adding and slicing it into something that's much more complex. Okay? Now this idea can and should be continued throughout the rest of my mesh. Okay? For example, maybe I go in here. I'm just going to double click on it. Shift-C, I always define the start and the end of an arc. My eyeballs are focusing on this curve in here. Now I have this edge that's going to define the start of that transition, and I already have an edge, this guy over here, that's doing a really solid job of kind of representing the conclusion of that curve, right? So now I just need to slice in here. That's where a loop slice comes in. Let's do a count of 5 initially, uniformly spaced. And I can start pulling the ones. Actually, I have a whole bunch in here that I need to do. And then slowly work my way up the model. Something like this. Now all of these are in the wrong spot. They need to be down here. There we go. And we're starting to very slowly and methodically kind of cut in the details for my little Jeep. Now I have a lot of work in here left to be done. Let's do this. Let's get that back up there. Okay. Yeah, and I'm going to skip to the front here a little bit because we've been neglecting that top view. Now, one of the challenges inside the Jeep is that we have, this tapering effect. As the Jeep goes from the widest part in the back to the engine block in the front, it actually gets a whole lot smaller. Okay. So, but luckily for us, we have some slices here that we can use to continue defining that change in form. Shift C, I'll hold down the Control key to slice in. There we go. I like it. Oops. That's the start of the taper in there. We have an edge here that will help us kind of define the end of the taper, so let's just move it. My brain is saying that taper finishes right in there. And then I need one more. Actually, let's do this. Changing my mind here. There we go. We're getting there. And then, of course, that front polygon is going to get scaled down too to get the taper. Looks like I forgot an edge. Nope, actually that looks right. We're getting there. Of course, I got a lot of work in here that I need to do to figure out and continue to define this whole section, but that's okay. We can continue to do that later. It's one of the challenges. Here's an easy peasy little thing, because I'm running out of time here and I got to move on to some other stuff. If you think about it, the back of the Jeep is kind of like a bathtub. Okay? There's a big inset in there. If you look at your reference images, you'll see a lot of really great information. There we go. Check it out. Yeah, you can see it pretty clearly here. We'll zoom in so you guys can see it. Yeah, see how we have the side of the Jeep, okay, and then it curves, it goes around the back, okay. How are we going to create that inset? Food for thought. Think about it. Huh? Yeah, kinda. Yeah, I like the way you're thinking. That's a good way to begin. Because I'm going to get crazy here. Oops, I dropped my selection. What if you did this? What if you fire off the bevel tool? Do an inset first. What we're doing here is defining the width of that piece of sheet metal, of the frame of the body. Then shift click, you can bring it down. Now a lot of folks, they get kind of confused at this moment because they don't know what to do next. Okay? Here's a great trick. This is a trick that I wish someone would have shown me a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Okay? I want to make the inside of my Jeep flat, right? Because the floorboard is going to be flat. Here's a great way to get all these polygons flat at one time. Believe it or not, the scale tool, okay? You got to make sure that negative scale is turned on. This is important, okay? And I'm just going to flatten these along the y-axis. Oops. Negative scale is going to be turned off. I always get that backwards. Check it out. I just scale it to a value of 0%, makes a floor, and now I can move it down. A little bit of a challenge though, because if I move it down to establish the floor for like the driver, what do I need to do in the back? What's happened here? Yeah, the polygons have passed through one another. So we need to go in and make some changes, okay? So at one point in here, let's see, you can see where the wheel well is. So maybe right around in here. I'm going to select all those back ones. I want to move them together as a unit, just up, until they don't cross over the wheel well. And in actuality, the wheel well is not super big. The wheel well is only about that deep. Okay? The rest of this stuff in here can and should be flattened. You can actually see the reference in the background. I didn't select the right polygons, but I think you guys are going to start to see the idea. We're getting there. We're getting there. Of course, these edges need to be moved in. Here, let's do this. Make it go a little faster. Scale those edges in. Yeah. Of course, we need some other edges in here. We need more geometry. See how that slope is just too big? Yeah, way too big. Don't bevel it, loop slice it. Okay? Now I want to put the count to 1, mode of free. So I just need some extra geometry in there. That will allow me to start pushing and pulling stuff around. Let's start here. Move it up. Just going to organically go through. This is not the most accurate way, but it's just the kind of organic, fast way. So now we'll have 2 rows of polygons that are basically in the exact same spot. There we go. There we go. You likey. We're getting there. We're getting there. A couple more little rows of geometry in there. Oh, and FYI, if you ever get a polygon like this, see you had an opening there, hit the F key. Let's flip it around. Oh, I'm making it worse. Yeah, I'm tearing it apart. Why am I tearing it apart? Because those are very non-planar faces here. Yeah, it's sprayed and it's getting worse because the angle is too intense here. Let's reduce it a little bit. I went a little too crazy. Do I have something twisted? I may have twisted it on accident. One of the things you'll learn that talking 3D modeling and teaching are not conducive experiences. Yeah, I'll have to close that gap. There's a great tool in here called the bridge tool that will allow me to, or actually, let's do this. Instead of using bridge, I'll use one of my favorite tools called fill quads. I'll fill with a grid pattern. Yeah, they're so non-planar. They're twisted. Now even that's not working. I got geometric problems that I need to solve. But things are starting to look better. You know, it's starting to kind of come out in front of us. Clearly, you know, my bumper needs to be fixed. Okay. Start establishing those planes. Yep. There we go. We're getting there. I got to figure that out. Okay. Now, one other thing here before we all escape. Okay. Symmetry. Is our Jeep symmetrical? Is the left side of our Jeep the same as the right side of the Jeep? Pretty much. I mean, naturally, there's some differences, some small interior differences, right? One side's going to have a steering wheel, the other side's not, okay? But as far as the body goes, it's symmetrical. The wheels are symmetrical. It'd be a whole lot better and more efficient and definitely more accurate if we if the left side is identical to the right side, right? Well, that's the goal. It'd be much more efficient if we focused all of our energy on one side, and then have the computer make the other side for us, okay? This is called mirroring, and it's really, really easy to do, okay? The first thing that we have to do, however, is basically cut our mesh in half, okay, which is the hard part, because you guys are like, what, are you kidding me? I don't want to cut it in half. Trust me, you'll want to in a minute. So I'm just going to grab my slice tool, just slice down the middle. Now you got to decide which side you're going to keep. I'm going to keep this side, so I'm going to grab all of these polygons and delete them. Okay? I'm left with 1/2. Now you want to go in and you want to make this 1/2 just perfect, perfect, perfect. Don't mirror until you are done, 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 done. Okay? There's one magical step that we need to do before we can mirror. Okay? And that's to ensure that all of the verts along the border here, all of these guys, okay, all of the border verts are perfectly centered around the x-axis. Now, I can eyeball it to the grid, but I don't like eyeballing it. I don't do eyeballing, okay? I can get close, but if it's off, even by the smallest of a fraction, it's not going to work, okay? So here's the way to make it perfect, and it's super easy, okay? But it requires us to go into a new area of our toolbar, which is the vertex collection of tools. And what we're going to do is that we're going to set the position of each individual vert, okay? This is different from center selected, which looks at the total group and centers the group, okay? Let me show you a great example of that before I go any further, just so everyone's on the same page as to how it's different. Here, I'll just grab these front ones. Okay, so the front one is offset. Okay, if I did center selected along the x-axis, see what it does? It tries to center the entire group along the x-axis, which isn't what I want, right? I want the computer to go in and look at each individual vert and place it precisely at the location that I want, which happens to be at the center of the x-axis. So with those verts still selected, I'm going to go back into my vertex collection of tools and choose Set Position. Now, we have a little popover that's going to pop in, okay? And it's going to ask us for a location. This is a location inside of our three-dimensional space. What is the location of our origin? Numerically, 0, 0, 0, okay? So if I want all those verts to be placed at the center of the x-axis, I want to put a value of 0 in that channel box, okay? Now watch what happens to all of my verts when I hit OK. Bloop. They all go where I want them to go. Okay? Now what the next step is, of course, we're going to select all the pieces that we want to mirror. And I'll unhide my wheel. Okay? And we're going to do the mirror. Now we want to mirror our Jeep around the origin of our scene, right around the center of the x-axis. So here's the other thing that I would encourage you to enable to get the accuracy that we want. Go into Action Center and put it to Origin. Okay? That way, every single tool handle will be placed at the origin of our scene, which is where we want to do our mirroring operation from. You can find the mirror command really easily in the duplication collection of tools. We've been in here once already. Okay? And there it is, mirror. And it really is kind of easy. All we need to do is click and make sure that we're mirroring along the correct axis, which is, in our case, X. There we go. You drop the tool, and now we have a symmetrical copy. This side is identical to the other side. Cool, huh? So that's what I would suggest that you do when you're working with your Jeep. Put all of your energy on the construction of one side, okay? Then mirror it across the x-axis, okay? That way, it's a symmetrical shape. And it gives you, you're basically cutting your work in half, okay? Because now instead of modeling the whole Jeep, you're just modeling half of it, then asking the computer to make the other side for you. Cool, huh? All right. Now, if we return to our assignment sheet back on Canvas, you can see that there's a couple things in here that I would like you to include, okay? Try to get as detailed as you can. So go in there, make the wheels. You know how to do the wheels real easily. To get the edge profiles and the wheels, it's just the bevel tool, okay? If you can see it in the pictures, try to place that detail in there. So put the seats in there, put the pipes in there. Try to do as much as you can on the model itself, okay? Keep it rough, though. If you want to go further, I'm never going to say no to that, okay? This is, in every sense, a really good portfolio piece, or it could be if you wanted to take it to the nth level, okay? When you're finished, please make sure you make a good render of your scene. Apply some materials and textures to both the scene elements and, of course, the Jeep itself. Remember, we're in the picture making business, okay? So make your picture representative of what you just spent a tremendous amount of effort making, okay? And then when you're done with this assignment, please make sure you submit both your Moto project file and a rendered JPEG to the Dropbox upon conclusion. Now, if you need a little bit more, a little bit more love on a lot of the stuff that we've talked today, there it is. There's everything and some other stuff, okay? So here's some small dedicated videos on just the specifics of how some of these tools and ideas work inside of Moto. And as always, I'd make sure you reference the live stream to see exactly what we talked about in class today. Questions? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So how do we show the verts in the actual three-dimensional scene? It's a viewport property. So if you hit the O key, it's under the Active Meshes section. And it is Show Verts. You have three options, always in component modes or in vertex mode, or excuse me, you have four options, you have never. So I'll let you figure out where you want to land in that. I like in vertex mode. In all honesty, I usually keep it in vertex mode. That way, when I'm trying to select vertices, I see them pop in. At other opportunities, they're just not going to be there. Okay? Great question. Other questions? All right, good luck. May the force be with you guys. I'll see you guys next week.